What if the most advanced anti-aging research in the world isn't happening in a pharmaceutical lab in Switzerland or a biotech startup in Silicon Valley, but in the kitchens, gardens, and morning routines of ordinary people in Japan? Japan has the highest life expectancy of any large nation on Earth. It has more people over the age of 100 per capita than almost anywhere else. Its rates of heart disease, dementia, and age-related cancer are among the lowest in the developed world. And this didn't happen because of some recent scientific breakthrough. It happened because of food. Specific food. Food that Japanese culture has been consuming, refining, and passing down for over 1,000 years. Here's what's remarkable. The reasons behind these foods were understood intuitively long before modern science had the tools to explain them. Japanese healers described these plants and fermented foods in terms of energy, purification, and longevity. Language that sounded like folklore to Western medicine. And then the peer-reviewed research started coming in. And it confirmed, one study at a time, that the ancient Japanese were right. Today I'm going to show you 20 of those foods. 20 Japanese superfoods that a civilization figured out 1,000 years ago, and that modern science is only now catching up to. Ranked from impressive to absolutely extraordinary. Stay with me for number 14. It's the food researchers believe is one of the key reasons Okinawans live past 100 in numbers that defy every Western demographic model. The evidence is not anecdotal. It's population-level data that has made nutritional scientists stop and take notice. And number 19 contains a compound that a study published in a leading scientific journal found to promote autophagy, the cellular cleanup process that declines with age, and that some researchers now believe is the most important single mechanism in healthy aging. Japanese islanders have been eating this plant for generations. The science arrived centuries later. If you believe that the oldest food traditions on Earth deserve more attention than the newest supplement trend, subscribe. We post deep dives like this every week. Now let's get into it. Here are 20 Japanese superfoods that keep you young, and what 1,000 years of wisdom plus modern science have to say about each one. Number 1. Shiso. The herb every Japanese grandmother knows that Western medicine is only now beginning to understand. For over 1,000 years, Japanese cooks and healers have used shiso, also called perilla leaf, as both a culinary staple and a medicinal herb. It was considered essential for digestion, for clearing inflammation, and for supporting the body through seasonal change. In traditional Japanese medicine, shiso was one of the first herbs given to children and one of the last things elderly people added to their daily meals. That continuity across an entire lifespan is not accidental. Modern analysis found rosmarinic acid, one of the most potent natural anti-inflammatory compounds ever identified, as a primary active constituent of shiso. Clinical research confirms it suppresses allergic responses, reduces oxidative stress, and protects cells from the kind of cumulative damage that accelerates aging. Peer-reviewed studies have demonstrated genuine antioxidant, anti-allergic, and anti-inflammatory effects. The ancient claim was inflammation and longevity. The science confirmed the mechanism. Shiso grows like a weed. Plant it once and it self-seeds year after year. Wrap fresh leaves around rice or fish. Add to salads, float in soups, or steep dried leaves as tea. The Japanese have been eating it daily for centuries. Your garden can give you a renewable supply of one of the most well-validated anti-aging herbs on Earth. Number 2 is a giant white radish that most Westerners walk past in the grocery store. And the people who eat it daily live longer than almost anyone on Earth. Number 2. Daikon, the radish that ancient Japanese medicine called essential for inner cleansing, and that modern science calls a detoxification powerhouse. Daikon has been cultivated and consumed in Japan for over 1,200 years. Traditional Japanese medicine considered it fundamental for digestive health, the idea being that a clean, efficient digestive system was the foundation of everything else. Daikon was eaten raw, pickled, simmered, and grated alongside fatty or heavy foods, specifically because healers observed it helped the body process and clear what it didn't need. That observation, refined over centuries, turns out to be biochemically precise. Daikon is loaded with digestive enzymes, particularly diastase and amylase, that support efficient food breakdown and nutrient absorption. It contains isothiocyanates, the same class of compounds in broccoli and cabbage that research links to liver support, reduced inflammation, and potential anti-cancer effects. Modern studies confirm that cruciferous vegetables like daikon support detoxification pathways in the liver, the exact mechanism traditional Japanese healers were describing in different language 1,000 years ago. Grate raw daikon over grilled fish or noodles. Pickle in rice vinegar for a probiotic-rich side dish. Simmer in miso soup or hot pots. Easy to grow in deep, loose soil and produces roots weighing several pounds. The people who live longest on Earth eat it nearly every day. That alone should be sufficient recommendation. Number 3 is something you've probably ordered as an appetizer without ever understanding what you were actually eating. Number 3. Edamame, consumed as a casual snack in Japan for centuries, while quietly delivering one of the most complete nutritional profiles of any plant food on Earth. Young soybeans have been a fixture in Japanese cuisine for hundreds of years. Eaten at festivals, served with sake, given to children as everyday food. Japanese culture never needed a scientific justification for edamame. It tasted good, it satisfied, and generation after generation of people who ate it regularly seemed to age in ways that puzzled Western observers. Populations consuming traditional soy-based diets showed cardiovascular markers that Western cardiologists couldn't reconcile with their models. The research eventually caught up. Edamame provides complete protein, significant fiber, and isoflavones, plant compounds that interact with estrogen receptors and have been shown across large population studies to support bone density, cardiovascular health, and hormonal balance during aging. Japanese women consuming soy daily show dramatically lower rates of menopausal symptoms than Western women. The isoflavone research now spans hundreds of thousands of participants across multiple continents. Ancient intuition, modern confirmation. Edamame is remarkably easy to grow in a home garden. It fixes nitrogen in the soil, improving conditions for neighboring plants simultaneously. Steam from frozen in 5 minutes. Add shelled to grain bowls, salads, and stir-fries. One of the few plant foods that delivers complete protein, cardiovascular protection, and hormonal support in a single handful. Number 4 is a root vegetable that looks completely unappetizing and has been keeping Japan healthy for over 1,000 years. Number 4. Gobo, the burdock root that Japanese healers called a blood purifier, and that modern gut science has finally explained why. Burdock root has been used in Japanese cooking and traditional medicine for over 1,200 years. It appears in historical records as a longevity food, something specifically consumed by people who wanted to maintain health and vitality into old age. Japanese herbalists called it a blood purifier, a term that Western medicine dismissed as metaphorical for centuries. It wasn't metaphorical. It was an accurate functional description expressed in the language available at the time. Gobo is extraordinarily rich in inulin, a prebiotic fiber that feeds bifidobacterium and lactobacillus species in the gut. The gut microbiome research of the last 2 decades has established direct links between these bacterial populations and immune function, skin aging, cognitive decline, and inflammatory regulation. Burdock also contains quercetin and luteolin, antioxidants with documented cellular protective effects. The blood purification that ancient Japanese healers observed was, in modern terms, improved detoxification pathways and a healthier gut-liver axis. Slice thinly and stir-fry with sesame oil and soy sauce in the traditional dish kimpira gobos. Add to soups and broths. Gobo requires deep, loose soil to grow, but is a biennial that produces reliably. One of the most unglamorous vegetables in existence, and one of the most quietly effective longevity foods on this list. Number 5 is ginger's lesser-known Japanese cousin, and it thrives in the one place most garden plants refuse to grow. Number 5. Myoga, the shade-growing Japanese ginger that healers used for centuries before researchers found its unique phytochemical profile. Myoga is a Japanese ginger species whose fragrant flower buds have been used as a culinary herb and mild medicinal plant for centuries. Traditional Japanese medicine valued it as a digestive aid and circulation supporter, particularly useful in the elderly. It appeared in the diets of people in mountainous and forested regions of Japan where sunlight was limited and other plants struggled, precisely because Myoga thrives in shade. Its presence in traditional longevity diets across multiple Japanese regions was consistent enough to draw attention from researchers. Modern analysis confirmed anti-inflammatory and antioxidant properties comparable to regular ginger, with a unique phytochemical profile distinct from its more famous relative. The volatile compounds in myoga show activity against oxidative stress markers in preliminary research. While the clinical trial literature on myoga is less extensive than on some other Japanese foods, the consistent presence of this plant across Japanese longevity food traditions, across geography and time, suggests mechanisms that research is still in the process of fully characterizing. Use fresh myoga buds thinly sliced as a garnish for miso soup, cold tofu, and noodle dishes. It's a perennial that returns year after year with almost no maintenance, and it fills the shaded corners of a garden where nothing else will grow. Plant it once, and it becomes a permanent part of your food landscape. Number 6 isn't a plant exactly, but it's made from plants. And what the fermentation process creates is more powerful than the sum of its ingredients. Number 6. Miso, consumed daily by millions of Japanese people for over 1,000 years, and the fermented food that modern gut science now considers one of the most significant dietary longevity factors in the Japanese diet. Japanese miso soup isn't just breakfast. It's been a daily ritual across the country for over 1,200 years, consumed by farmers, monks, samurai, and emperors alike. Traditional Japanese medicine considered miso essential for digestive vitality and longevity. Long-lived communities in Japan invariably consumed miso daily. The pattern was so consistent across different regions, different climates, and different population groups that even before the science existed, the cultural consensus was unambiguous. Miso was life-extending food. The fermentation process transforms soybeans, rice, or barley into a rich source of probiotics, bioavailable minerals, and enzymes that directly support gut microbiome health. Large population studies following Japanese cohorts have found associations between regular miso consumption and lower rates of cardiovascular disease and certain cancers. The gut microbiome diversity supported by fermented foods like miso is now understood to influence immune regulation, inflammation, cognitive function, and metabolic health, every major pathway of age-related decline. One bowl of miso soup daily, dashi broth, miso paste, tofu, and wakame is the most direct way to incorporate it. The soybeans, rice, and barley used to make miso are all growable in a home garden. Making miso at home is a Japanese tradition that connects you to 1,200 years of living well. Number 7 has been cultivated in Japan for over 1,000 years. And it wasn't just food, it was medicine. And the Japanese never confused the two. Number 7. Shiitake, called the mushroom of immortality in Japanese tradition, and the subject of more serious medical research than almost any other food on this list. Shiitake has been cultivated in Japan since at least the 12th century. Japanese healers used it to support immune function, increase vitality in the elderly, and address what they described as energy depletion, the gradual dimming of physical and mental capacity that accompanies aging. It was given to people recovering from illness, to the elderly during winter, and to anyone the healers considered vulnerable. The nickname wasn't poetic exaggeration. It was a clinical assessment expressed in the vocabulary of the time. Lentinin, the primary bioactive compound in shiitake, has been studied extensively enough that it is used as an adjunct in certain medical protocols in Japan. Beyond immune modulation, shiitake contains arytadinine, shown to support healthy cholesterol levels, along with B vitamins, selenium, and vitamin D when sun-exposed. The breadth of documented biological activity in a single mushroom is unusual enough that mainstream nutritional science has taken formal notice. Grow shiitake on hardwood logs in your backyard. One inoculated log produces mushrooms for 3 to 5 years with minimal maintenance. Sauté in sesame oil, add to soups and broths, or dry in powder for daily supplementation. The mushroom that earned its ancient nickname is one you can cultivate yourself starting this season. Number 8 comes from the ocean. And what it does for one of the most underappreciated systems in the body explains more about Japanese longevity than most people realize. Number 8. Wakame, the sea vegetable that Japanese coastal healers prescribed for vitality and thyroid health, long before endocrinology existed as a field. Wakame has been consumed in Japan for over 10,000 years. Archaeological evidence places it in coastal Japanese diets before recorded history. Traditional medicine associated regular seaweed consumption with sustained energy, healthy weight, and what healers described as internal warmth and metabolic vitality. These weren't metaphors for general wellness. They were accurate observations about thyroid function, the system that regulates metabolism, body temperature, energy production, and cognitive sharpness, described in the language available before glandular biology was understood. Wakame is exceptionally rich in iodine, the mineral that thyroid hormone synthesis depends on, and that is dramatically underrepresented in most Western diets. It also contains fucoxanthin, a carotenoid pigment that researchers are actively studying for its effects on metabolism and fat regulation, along with calcium, magnesium, and folate in highly bioavailable forms. Japanese coastal populations consuming seaweed regularly show notably lower rates of thyroid disorders than Western populations eating iodine-deficient diets. Add dried wakame to miso soup. It rehydrates in minutes. Dress rehydrated wakame with rice vinegar, sesame oil, and sesame seeds for a simple side salad. Available dried in most Asian grocery stores and increasingly in mainstream supermarkets. 10,000 years of consistent use is a clinical trial of a different kind. Number 9 has been in Japanese lunchboxes, on rice, and in temple kitchens for over 1,000 years. And its effects on the body were considered so reliable that warriors carried it into battle. Number 9. Umeboshi, the pickled plum that Japanese warriors carried for endurance, and that modern research confirms supports the exact metabolic processes they were relying on. Umeboshi, salt-pickled Japanese plums, have been consumed in Japan since at least the 10th century. Samurai carried them as field rations because they were understood to maintain energy, prevent fatigue, and support recovery. Monks ate them to sustain concentration during extended meditation. In traditional Japanese medicine, umeboshi were considered a cure-all, used for digestive disturbance, fatigue, nausea, and what healers called energetic depletion. The range of traditional applications was wide enough that Western medicine assumed it was folklore. The biochemistry suggests the range was justified. Prunus mume contains citric acid that supports the Krebs cycle, the cellular energy production mechanism, along with polyphenols with antioxidant activity, and compounds demonstrating antibacterial properties. Studies show Yumi extracts support liver function and have measurable antioxidant activity. The alkalizing effect in the body valued in traditional practice corresponds to real effects on metabolic acid load that modern nutritional biochemistry has documented. The warrior's field ration was a functional food with a biochemical rationale. One small umeboshi with rice is the traditional daily dose, enough to deliver the organic acids and polyphenols without excessive sodium. Japanese yume trees are ornamental flowering trees in spring and productive fruit trees in summer. Growing one gives you both beauty and a lifetime supply of the samurai's endurance food. I want to pause here for a moment and give you something. Not because I have to, but because if you're the kind of person who watches a video like this all the way through, you deserve more than inspiration. You deserve something you can actually use in your kitchen, your garden, and your daily routine today. So I put together a complete companion guide for everything we're covering: how to source each of these foods, how to prepare them, how to incorporate them into daily life in ways that are practical and sustainable. The kind of resource that sits next to you while you cook, not on a shelf. It's in the first pinned comment below. No pressure at all. But if you're serious about what we're talking about, I think you'll find it invaluable. All right, we're about to get into the foods that made researchers genuinely stop and reconsider what they thought they knew about aging. Let's keep going. Number 10. Natto, the fermented soybean that most Westerners can't get past, and that might be the single most powerful cardiovascular food ever discovered. Natto has been consumed in Japan since at least the 11th century. Legend attributes its discovery to a samurai whose boiled soybeans were accidentally fermented in straw. Japanese healers noted its effects on circulation and blood vitality with the kind of specificity that suggested genuine clinical observation over generations. Regions of Japan with the highest natto consumption showed cardiovascular outcomes that didn't match the population's age demographics, an anomaly that researchers eventually decided was worth investigating systematically. What they found was nattokinase, an enzyme produced during fermentation with documented fibrinolytic activity, meaning it supports healthy blood flow and cardiovascular function in ways that have been the subject of serious clinical investigation. Natto is also extraordinarily rich in vitamin K2, the form that directs calcium into bones rather than arterial walls. The combination of nattokinase and K2 in a single fermented food addresses two of the primary mechanisms behind cardiovascular aging simultaneously. No pharmaceutical product delivers both in one dose. The flavor is strong and the texture is stringy. Natto is a commitment. Traditionally eaten over rice with mustard and soy sauce for breakfast, the soybeans can be grown at home, and the fermentation requires minimal equipment. The people who eat natto regularly keep their hearts strong into advanced old age. That outcome is worth the taste adjustment. Number 11 is a citrus fruit so fragrant and complex that chefs pay premium prices for it worldwide. And the science behind what it does to stress and inflammation is as sophisticated as the flavor. Number 11. Yuzu, prized in Japanese culture for centuries for its effect on mood and circulation, and studied by researchers for mechanisms that vindicate both claims. Yuzu has been cultivated in Japan for over 1,000 years, used in cuisine, in ritual bathing, and in traditional medicine. The winter solstice yuzu bath, soaking in hot water infused with yuzu fruit, is a centuries-old Japanese tradition believed to protect the body through the cold season and support circulation. Japanese healers associated yuzu's fragrance specifically with stress reduction and emotional balance. This was not vague wellness language. It was a specific clinical observation about the physiological effects of aromatic compounds on the nervous system, an observation modern research has now characterized in molecular detail. Yuzu contains 3 times more vitamin C than lemons, along with unique flavonoids and lemonoids with antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties. Studies on yuzu aroma found measurable reductions in stress markers, specifically sympathetic nervous system activation, in participants exposed to yuzu fragrance. The aromatic compounds in yuzu peel demonstrably shift the body's stress response in ways the ancient healers observed, described, and built a cultural practice around before the sympathetic nervous system had been named. Use yuzu zest and juice over fish, in dressings and in hot water as a simple tea. Yuzu trees are surprisingly cold-hardy for a citrus and can be grown in many temperate climates. Slow to fruit but worth the long-term investment in a tree that brings both culinary and medicinal returns. Number 12 is a plant the West grows in flower gardens, and Japan eats for dinner. Number 12. Shungiku, the edible chrysanthemum that Japanese cooks have used for centuries, and that Western gardeners have been growing for decoration without ever realizing they were standing next to medicine. Chrysanthemum greens have been eaten in Japan for hundreds of years, used in hot pots, stir-fries, and salads, particularly in autumn and winter when the plant grows most vigorously. Traditional Japanese medicine valued shungiku for supporting respiratory health and digestive function, a pairing that seems unusual until you understand that many of its active compounds address inflammatory pathways relevant to both systems simultaneously. The plant that Westerners cultivate exclusively for its flowers was never ornamental in Japan. It was food and medicine. And the distinction between those two categories was not one Japanese food culture found particularly meaningful. Shungiku is rich in beta-carotene, potassium, and a range of unique flavonoids. Research has explored chrysanthemum compounds for antioxidant and neuroprotective properties. The flavonoid luteolin, present in meaningful quantities, has been studied for its effects on neural inflammation and cognitive protection in aging. The combination of accessibility, productivity, and documented biological activity makes shungiku one of the most underutilized plants in Western home gardens. Blanch briefly and dress with sesame oil and soy sauce. Add raw to salads when young and tender. Incorporate into hot pots and soups in the final minutes of cooking. It grows quickly, tolerates cool weather, and can be harvested multiple times from a single planting. The most powerful plants are sometimes the ones we've been looking at and walking past all along. Number 13 is the ingredient that makes Japanese food taste like Japanese food. And that may also be one of the reasons Japanese people age the way they do. Number 13. Kombu, the kelp that underlies all of Japanese cooking, and that contains a compound researchers are studying with increasing seriousness for its immune and anti-inflammatory effects. Kombu has been a foundation of Japanese cuisine for over 1,000 years. The basis of dashi, the broth that underlies miso soup, noodle broths, simmered dishes, and nearly every savory preparation in the Japanese culinary tradition. Traditional healers and cooks didn't separate the nutritional from the culinary. The broth that made food taste profound was also the vehicle through which minerals, bioactive compounds, and gut-supporting polysaccharides entered the diet daily, without anyone thinking of it as medicine. That integration, healing through daily flavor, is one of the most sophisticated aspects of Japanese food culture. Kombu is extraordinarily rich in iodine, iron, calcium, and magnesium. It contains fucoidan, a sulfated polysaccharide that researchers have been investigating for immune-modulating and anti-inflammatory effects with growing interest in the scientific literature. Okinawa, the region of Japan with more centenarians per capita than almost anywhere on Earth, has traditionally consumed significant quantities of kombu. Population data and mechanistic research are pointing in the same direction. Simmer a piece of dried kombu in water for 20 minutes to make dashi, the foundation of miso soup and countless other Japanese dishes. Remove the kombu before eating or slice it thinly and serve as a side dish. Available dried in Asian grocery stores and increasingly in mainstream supermarkets. The ingredient that makes Japanese food profound is also doing something important in the bodies of the people eating it. And now, number 14. The food I mentioned at the beginning. The Okinawan secret that the data cannot explain any other way. Number 14. Satsuma imo, the Japanese sweet potato that made up 60% of the traditional Okinawan diet, and that researchers believe is central to why Okinawa has more people over 100 than almost anywhere on Earth. The Okinawan longevity phenomenon has been studied for decades. Demographers, nutritionists, and gerontologists have examined every variable. Genetics, social structure, activity levels, stress patterns, and diet have all been analyzed. The dietary variable that appears most consistently in the research is the extraordinary centrality of sweet potato, specifically the purple-fleshed Japanese varieties, in the traditional Okinawan diet. 60% of caloric intake from a single food is a remarkable dietary pattern, and the outcomes associated with that pattern are equally remarkable. Centenarian rates that outpace every Western demographic model by significant margins. The purple-fleshed varieties of Satsuma imo are loaded with anthocyanins, among the most powerful antioxidants studied in nutritional science, alongside significant beta-carotene, vitamin C, and fiber. Research on Okinawan populations links their traditional diet to reduced oxidative stress, lower inflammation markers, better cardiovascular profiles, and cognitive function that holds well into advanced age. The sweet potato is not the only variable, but it is the most consistent, most quantifiable, and most directly studied one in the Okinawan longevity literature. Sweet potatoes are one of the most productive and easiest crops in a home garden. They thrive in warm weather, resist most pests, and store for months. Roast whole, steam, or simmer in soups. The purple-fleshed varieties are available as slips from specialty growers. This is the crop that may hold the single biggest dietary secret to living past 100. You can plant it this spring. Number 15 is the little red bean that appears in Japanese desserts, celebrations, and daily cooking, and whose antioxidant profile surprises researchers every time they measure it. Number 15. Azuki, the small red bean that Japanese folk medicine used for kidney and liver support for centuries, and that modern analysis confirms has antioxidant activity among the highest measured in any legume. Azuki beans have been cultivated in Japan for over 1,000 years, present in ritual foods and everyday cooking, and in traditional medicine simultaneously. Japanese herbalists specifically associated them with kidney and liver health, the two organs that detoxification pathways run through, and recommended them for people showing signs of what was described as accumulated internal toxicity. The connection between a red bean and liver support sounds like ancient folk belief, until you look at the polyphenol content and understand that the liver processes oxidative stress, and Azuki beans deliver exceptional antioxidant load directly to the system that needs it. Vigna angularis is rich in proanthocyanidins, with some of the highest antioxidant activity measured among beans in published analyses. It provides significant protein, fiber, folate, and minerals, alongside those polyphenols. A complete nutritional package that Japanese cuisine deploys across sweet and savory applications with equal fluency. The integration of a high antioxidant legume into both everyday meals and celebratory foods means the Japanese consume it with a frequency that no single application food achieves. Sweet red bean paste, anko, is the most common preparation used in wagashi sweets and mochi. In savory cooking, azuki beans simmer beautifully in rice. Sekihan, the red rice eaten at celebrations, is azuki cooked with glutinous rice. Grow like any warm weather bean. Direct sow after last frost, harvest and dry. Simple cultivation, extraordinary nutritional return. Number 16 is a delicate herb that is as common in Japanese cuisine as parsley is in Western cooking, and almost entirely unknown to Western gardeners. Number 16. Mitsuba, Japan's three-leaf wild parsley used in traditional medicine for respiratory and digestive health and growing contentedly in shade where most herbs refuse to establish. Mitsuba, literally three leaves, has been used as a culinary herb and mild medicinal plant in Japan for centuries. Traditional Japanese herbalism associated it with respiratory health, digestive support, and what healers described as calming the system, a gentle tonic plant rather than a targeted therapeutic one. Its presence across multiple Japanese food traditions, its shade tolerance, and its perennial nature meant that households with a north-facing garden or a shaded corner had reliable access to its benefits year-round. In traditional Japanese medical thinking, consistent daily consumption of a mild beneficial plant was more valuable than occasional large doses of a powerful one. Cryptotania japonica contains unique volatile aromatic compounds, vitamins, and minerals whose full characterization is still underway in the research literature. What exists confirms antioxidant activity, and the traditional respiratory associations are consistent with anti-inflammatory mechanisms found in related Apiaceae family plants. Mitsuba represents a category of Japanese longevity food that science hasn't fully explored yet. Plants whose consistent millennial use constitutes a form of evidence that precedes the randomized controlled trial. Use fresh Mitsuba as a garnish for clear soups, egg dishes, and sashimi. Add it at the last moment to preserve its delicate flavor. It self-seeds readily in mild climates and tolerates more shade than almost any culinary herb. Virtually unknown in Western gardening, which means almost nobody is growing it. And the people who eat it daily live in one of the healthiest countries on Earth. Number 17 is a plant the world thinks it knows and has almost never actually tasted. Number 17, real wasabi, one of the most difficult plants to cultivate, one of the most medically potent, and one of the most comprehensively misrepresented foods in global cuisine. Real wasabi, Wasabia japonica, has been used in Japanese cuisine and medicine for over 1,000 years. Traditional Japanese medicine valued it as an antibacterial, a digestive aid, and a food that supported what healers called circulation of energy, a description that maps reasonably well onto vasodilation and improved blood flow. The extreme difficulty of cultivating wasabi, it requires cool, consistently moist, shaded conditions, meant that for most of Japanese history it was a rare and precious food, consumed by those who could access mountain streams in specific regions. Its medicinal reputation was built on genuine observed effects in populations who consumed the real thing. Real wasabi contains isothiocyanates with potent anti-inflammatory and antimicrobial properties. Research has investigated these compounds for their potential effects on cellular health, oxidative stress reduction, and inflammatory pathway modulation. The problem is that almost nothing sold as wasabi outside Japan is real wasabi. The green paste in most sushi restaurants is horseradish colored with food dye. Real wasabi loses its primary active compounds within 15 minutes of grating. The medicinal reputation belongs to the plant, not the imitation. Growing real wasabi is challenging but possible for dedicated gardeners in cool, humid climates. It needs shade, consistent moisture, and temperatures between 8 and 20 degrees Celsius. A fresh wasabi root grated moments before eating has a clean, complex heat, completely unlike the imitation. The superfood the world thinks it knows is waiting to be actually tasted. Number 18 is extremely bitter, and that bitterness is precisely what makes it medically remarkable. Number 18. Goya, the bitter melon that Okinawans eat regularly as part of a diet that produces centenarians at rates the rest of the world cannot explain. Goya, bitter melon, is a fixture of Okinawan cuisine, most famously in Goya champuru, the stir-fry that appears on Okinawan tables multiple times a week. Traditional Okinawan medicine associated Goya specifically with blood sugar balance and sustained energy, a claim that seemed like folk belief until researchers began studying the specific compounds responsible for its extreme bitterness, and found that those compounds have measurable effects on glucose metabolism. The Okinawans weren't describing a cultural preference. They were describing a physiological observation that had been refined over generations of eating the same food and watching what happened. Mamortica curantia has been studied extensively for its effects on blood sugar regulation. Clinical research has demonstrated compounds in bitter melon that may support healthy glucose metabolism through mechanisms that include insulin receptor sensitization. In the context of Okinawan longevity, where traditional diet appears to create metabolic conditions fundamentally different from Western norms, the regular consumption of a vegetable with documented glucose-regulating activity is not a coincidence. It's a dietary pattern, precision-engineered by centuries of observation. Grow Goya as a vigorous summer vine. Japanese gardeners train it over window frames as a living green curtain that provides shade, food, and medicine simultaneously. Slice thinly, salt to reduce bitterness, rinse and stir-fry with tofu, egg, and pork, or its vegetarian equivalent. The bitterness diminishes with preparation and cooking. The people who eat it into their hundreds are proof that the challenge is worth accepting. Number 19 is where ancient wisdom and the absolute cutting edge of aging science meet. And the meeting point is a compound that researchers only recently understood in a plant that Japanese islanders have been eating for generations. Number 19. Ashitaba, the leaf of tomorrow, whose regenerative reputation in Japanese island culture turns out to be a precise description of what its primary compound does at the cellular level. Ashitaba literally means tomorrow's leaf. When you harvest one, a new leaf grows back the next day. On Hachijojima Island, where Ashitaba grows native and has been consumed for centuries, the local population is known for exceptional health and longevity that exceeds even the Japanese national average. Traditional medicine on the island used ashitaba as a general tonic for vitality and regeneration. Language that in most contexts would be dismissed as non-specific wellness claims. In this case, it turned out to be an accurate molecular description. A study published in a leading scientific journal found that a compound in ashitaba called 4,4-dimethoxychalcone promotes autophagy, the cellular cleanup process through which cells break down and recycle damaged components. Autophagy declines with age, and its decline is increasingly understood by researchers as one of the primary mechanisms through which aging accumulates at the cellular level. Finding a naturally occurring dietary compound that promotes autophagy is a significant finding. The Japanese islanders who named the plant for its regenerative quality were describing, in experiential terms, exactly what the molecular biology eventually confirmed. Ashitaba grows as a vigorous perennial in mild climates. Large, attractive leaves that can be harvested regularly for juice, tea, or cooking. Add young leaves to green juices and smoothies. Steep dried leaves as tea. The research is early, but the direction is clear. And the island population that has been eating this plant for generations isn't waiting for the clinical trials to conclude. You could already have it growing in your garden before the science fully catches up. And now, number 20. The food I saved for last because it represents everything this video has been building toward. Ancient ritual, modern confirmation, 1,000 years of wisdom, and thousands of peer-reviewed studies pointing in exactly the same direction. Number 20. Matcha, stone ground, shade-grown green tea, possibly the single most studied anti-aging compound in nutritional science, and a food that Japanese culture has been consuming with ceremonial intentionality for over 800 years. The Japanese tea ceremony isn't just an aesthetic tradition. It is a formalized practice of consuming a specific food in a specific way. Shade-grown, stone ground, the whole leaf consumed rather than steeped and discarded. That was developed by monks who noticed the effects of this particular preparation on mental clarity, sustained attention, and physical resilience during long meditation retreats. Samurai drank it before battle. Okinawan centenarians drink it every day. The ceremony encoded the dosage, the preparation method, and the cultural context for a food whose effects were understood empirically centuries before the biochemistry existed to explain them. Camellia sinensis, shade-grown and ground into matcha, produces a concentration of catechins, particularly EGCG, that dwarfs regular green tea. Thousands of studies have investigated EGCG for its effects on cellular health, metabolic function, cognitive performance, and cardiovascular protection. Research links regular green tea consumption to reduced cardiovascular disease risk, improved cognitive function with aging, better metabolic health, and enhanced cellular protection against oxidative damage. Matcha delivers all of this at multiples of regular green tea concentration because you consume the whole leaf. The monks and samurai were drinking the most antioxidant-dense preparation available. They didn't know why it worked. They knew that it did, and they built a civilization around the practice. 1 to 2 cups of matcha daily, whisked with hot water in the traditional preparation, or blended into smoothies and oat milk lattes for modern palates. Camellia sinensis is an evergreen shrub that grows in many temperate climates. You can shade your own tea plants before harvest to boost chlorophyll and amino acid content, and process the leaves yourself. It's a long-term project that connects you directly to the most celebrated anti-aging tradition in Japanese culture: the green elixir of the monks, the morning ritual of the centenarians, and now, yours. Before I close, I need to tell you something. You just watched 20 foods that a civilization spent 1,000 years perfecting, and that modern science has spent the last 50 years confirming. Every single one. Most people won't watch to the end, and most people will never connect these dots. But you stayed. And that means you now hold something genuinely valuable. So here's how I want to honor that. Everything I know about sourcing, preparing, and incorporating these 20 Japanese superfoods into daily life, the practical guide that turns this knowledge into a real routine, I put into a complete reference. And right now, for anyone who made it to the end of this video, I'm offering 20% off. Use the code FULLVIDEO at checkout. The link is in the first pinned comment below. No countdown timer, no artificial pressure. Just my way of saying thank you to the people who actually show up and pay attention. The code is FULLVIDEO. It's in the pinned comment whenever you're ready. Japan's secret to longevity isn't hidden in a pharmaceutical lab or locked behind a prescription. It's growing in gardens, simmering in kitchens, and fermenting in clay pots across an entire nation that figured out, one generation at a time, how to feed the body in ways that let it age gracefully. The 20 foods in this video aren't folklore. They're not wellness trends. They're legitimate, science-backed, traditionally validated foods that real people eat every day in the country with one of the highest life expectancies on Earth. Every one of them was understood intuitively before it was understood scientifically. Every one of them held up under scrutiny. Every one of them is available to you in a grocery store, at an Asian market, or growing in your own garden. 1,000 years of wisdom, thousands of peer-reviewed studies, and a bowl of miso soup every morning. The Japanese figured it out. Now you know what they know. Tell me in the comments. Which of these 20 superfoods surprised you most? Which one are you adding to your routine first? Are you Team Matcha, Team Natto if you're brave enough, or Team Okinawan sweet potato? Share this video with someone who's still chasing the next miracle supplement from some far-off jungle, while the answers have been quietly sitting in Japanese kitchens for 1,000 years. Subscribe and ring the bell. Next week, we go deeper into the plants and foods that have been keeping people healthy longer than modern medicine has existed. I'll see you in the next one.